What did the second enemy say after the first got shot? Haha, deck joke of the day. What's going on, decks? Today I'm bringing you my 1886 1 tap 2 death build. If you are new to the channel, welcome to d.a.g in gaming. I'm your host Nox, where my favorite thing to do is respawn. The new Turmoil Kneepads are definitely awesome, and they come with a lot of controversy when it comes to builds. And one of the builds that's most popular with the new Turmoil Kneepads is a marksman one-shot build. I personally don't like marksmans. They give me more rage than anything else. It's more than likely a skill issue when it comes to me. I just find it that the marksman rifles, you could be aiming center mass and the bullet goes flying 12 feet to the left or right, while the marksman rifles are kings for one-shot builds. For me personally, marksman rifles shoot too slow, and I'm more of a rifle type of man. And when it comes to rifles, the 1886 is the king of one-shots for heroics. While the Classic M1A can hold its own in heroic, it's also the king of challenging. This build doesn't need a buff, it needs a criminal psychologist to explain why it likes double tapping so much. The pros of this build: once you do have your headhunter fully stacked up, you can take out 2 enemies with 1 shot. I believe it's a bug with the bewildered talent, because when you one-shot an enemy, the damage isn't reduced like it's supposed to, and you end up doing maximum damage to 2 different targets. So while it's amazing when you have your headhunter talent fully stacked up and able to one-tap 2 enemies at a time, one of the biggest cons of this build is the difficulty to actually stack up your headhunter now, because while you are not able to one-shot an enemy, you are going to be doing half damage to them and half damage to another enemy, which is going to reduce the amount of the headhunter stacking up. So keep that in mind, because you are going to have to change up your strategy when you these knee pads. And one of the biggest issues with the knee pads is if you do lose your headhunters in the middle of doing whatever you're doing, it's going to become very difficult to stack it back up. It won't be impossible, because you can set up the enemies to be able to one tap them, and it's not too bad, because when you're shooting one enemy, you are also doing damage to other enemies. So what you want to do is keep an eye out on all the other enemies' health bars, and once you see multiple enemies in the one-shot range, you are going to want to strain all those enemies in a row. That way you can stack up the headhunter's bonus damage bar to the point where you're able to one-shot enemies again. I found it most beneficial to this build to avoid certain factions like Black Tusk, Hyenas, Rikers, and try to solely focus on farming open world activities that are outcasts or cleaners. And the reason is that the outcasts and the cleaners do not have helmets on their units outside of the chungas. And for the outcasts, you only have to really worry about is those lawnmowers, because shooting those lawnmowers or any other factions deployable units or the Black Tusk Warhounds is going to actually get rid of your headhunter, meaning that you will have to build up your headhunter damage again. That's why when I play one-shot builds, I stick to the places like West End, Downtown West, and Foggy Bottom, greatly reducing my chances of running into other factions like the Hyenas and Black Tusk. You can get away with playing against the True Sons because their armored units do not come out that often, and their chunga isn't that bad to deal with. You just gotta go really close to them and he won't shoot the grenades at you. Another con for this build is that you're gonna have to really go all reds with it while trying to boost your damage as much as possible, which means you're gonna be left more exposed and squishy. But as long as you can keep your headhunter in the one-shot potential range, you'll be able to quickly dispatch all the enemies without worrying too much about getting shot or whatever. If you do run into a faction that has a helmet or a deployable, you can ignore those units and focus on the ones that you can one-shot, and hopefully Bewildered will actually proc on them and take them out for you. But like I said, you're going to want to avoid those types of factions at all costs, because if you get left with a unit with a helmet or a Black Tusk Warhound, you're going to end up having to break your headhunter determined combo on them, meaning now that the next wave or next encounter, you're going to have to worry about building up your headhunter again. With all those cons that I listed and explained to you, I don't know if I actually really like this build or not over my normal one-shot build. I did also post my normal 1886 one-shot build, so if you want to check that out, you're more than welcome to. Playing with Bewilder is really hit or miss. It's really good when you're able to keep your headhunter up, but it's also really bad if you don't have your headhunter fully stacked up, or if you do accidentally shoot something and lose it in the middle of an encounter. Playing with this build, you are going to be required to be more strategic and aware of your surroundings, especially if you're going to play on heroic. Playing on heroic, there's more potential to mess up, which will actually slow down your farming or whatever activity you are doing. So keep that in mind. While the upside of taking out 2 enemies with 1 shot is awesome, there's going to be a lot more downside as well in heroic content. For me, honestly, this build is more suited for playing on challenging, where the enemy's health pools are a lot lower and it's more forgiving. And on challenging, you could actually run with the Classic M1A, which will actually allow you to clear up challenging contact super fast because of its high rate of fire and large magazine size. So drop your comment what you guys actually think about these one-shot builds and if this is a good thing or bad thing. Because for me personally, I don't know if I actually like it or not. I'm leaning more towards my normal one-shot build with the 1886. The Turmoil Kneepads are new and there's still a lot to discover about about them. So let's come together as a community and brainstorm some awesome ideas for using them. Thanks for sticking around for my 2 cents about the turmoils and one-shot builds. So now let's get into the build. For the specialization, I'm utilizing the sharpshooter, which is going to give me access to my favorite skill this season, the technician drone. We're also going to get some weapon stability, recoil reduction, and target requisitioning. And that bonus armor when going into cover has saved my butt a couple times. Primary, I'm using the 1886. I have it rolled with damage to target out of cover, which is the best multiplicative damage source you can put on a weapon. To make this build work, you're going to have the normal determined. And I say normal determined because the normal determined doesn't work as intended. And the way that the normal determined works is that once you one-shot an enemy, it's still going to stay active for the next shot. So as long as you can string together all one-shots, you're going to constantly have determined proccing, meaning that you can shoot the enemies anywhere and it's going to count as a headshot. Keep in mind that if you do shoot a deployable skill, a helmet, or something like a Black Tusk Warhound, you're going to lose your determined. And that is my one and only lonely mod that I have equipped for it. For my secondary, I have the Classic M1 Alpha. You can actually get away with using this on Heroic, but it's more suited for challenging. And on challenging, you can play with up to 4 agents and still do enough damage to one-shot enemies with it. And I prefer using the Classic M1 Alpha over the 1886 because it has a higher RPM, a larger magazine capacity, and you can equip more mods to it. For the attribute, I have it rolled with damage to target out of cover. For the talent, I have determined as well. And these are the mods I have equipped for it. For the sidearm, I have the Harvest. The Harvest is definitely a beast of a handgun. It comes with a higher base damage but lower RPM, and if you didn't get the Harvest, you can get it from the Hoarder during certain events. I have it with the talent determined as well, and those are the 2 mods I have equipped for it. For my first armor piece, I have the Memento Exotic Backpack. It comes with all 3 cores, and I have it with a headshot armor mod. It comes with a talent Kill Confirm, which gives you a short-term and a long-term buff, and you trigger this buff by picking up Kill Confirm trophies after you take out an enemy. This backpack is super awesome from all the buffs that it gives, and you can reset the 300-second long-term duration by just picking up another Kill Confirm trophy. For the knee pads, I have the Turmoils that comes automatically double crit. You should have gotten these automatically. Just go to your stash and tab over to the mailbox. It comes with the talent Bewildered, which splits up your damage. But for one-shot builds, once you're able to one-shot the enemies, you actually end up doing full damage to both targets instead of half. For the face mask, I have one piece of the pallet size for the 10% armor on kill, and I have it rolled with critical hit damage and headshot damage with a headshot armor mod. I would prefer to have the critical hit damage attribute to be something else, but I just haven't found one. For the gloves, I went with Eagle Scraps. It comes automatically with the weapon handling, and I have it with headshot damage. For the holsters, I have my second piece of the SB Zoo with the weapon handling and headshot damage. And because I have 2 pieces, I have both the brand set bonuses unlocked for the magazine size and the rifle damage. For the chest piece, I ended up going with Overlords because it gives you 10% rifle damage. But you can also equip the Chain Killer, which is going to give you the 5% weapon damage. I have mine rolled with headshot damage and weapon handling with a 10% headshot armor mod. It comes with the Talent Headhunter, which is required to make this combo work. It gives you a stacking weapon damage boost as long as you can keep killing enemies with headshots. It normally caps at 800%, but if you have over 150 headshot damage, it's going to cap at 1250. If you do prefer to use the Perfect Headhunter and Chain Killer, the first kill is going to give you additional 25% weapon damage. Before we go into the skills, let's take a look at Rogue Momentum. If you look at the 5th tier, Unstoppable, and read the last sentence, it says skill overcharge, meaning that it does not matter how many skill tiers you have, because once you become unstoppable and your skills are overcharged, your skills are going to automatically benefit from the overcharge buffs. And some skills even come with extra effects. Another thing you want to do is also take out blacklisted enemies, because when you do take them out, you're going to get a 15-second buff that gives you 10% weapon handling and 10% critical hit chance. For my first skill, I have the Crusader Shield. From what we learned about Rogue Momentum and overcharging your skills, as long as we stay overcharged, we're going to get all those awesome buffs. And additionally, when you're overcharged, the shield is going to become invulnerable, meaning that the shield will not take any damage, while also meaning that any of the elites that shoot you, their damage will not penetrate the shield like normal. And these are the mods I have equipped for it. I'm going to be utilizing the shield as my only defense, and it's going to allow me to prevent taking a lot of damage as long as I can keep the enemies in front of me. For the second skill, I'm going with the Technician Drone. This skill is super powerful this season when you combo it with the microwave coils, because this drone is going to constantly pulse the enemies, and the duration of that pulse is super short, meaning that you're going to constantly apply the microwave coils burn on enemies while also giving yourself a lot of momentum each time you set an enemy on fire. The burn is really awesome too, because it will stop the enemies in their tracks. or if the enemies are behind cover, it's going to force them to stand up and flail their arms around, making it a lot more easier to take them out. When the drone's overcharged, it's going to greatly increase its range, and also when it's overcharged, you're going to apply weakness exploit, where you and your allies' damage is amplified by 15% in pulse targets. This is incredibly powerful for any type of weapon DPS builds, as it's a super easy way to get additional damage just by pulsing enemies. And weakness exploits applies to all sources of damage, including even the burn you get from microwave coils. And these are the bots I have equipped for it. For the active modifier, you can use whichever one you like, it doesn't really matter. For the first passive modifier, I went with microwave coils to combo with my technician drone. This thing is going to constantly apply crowd control with the burn and give me bonus momentum. Since we don't really have another way to generate momentum, this is going to be the greatest tool for generating momentum, allowing us to constantly benefit from the unstoppable tier of rogue momentum. For my second passive modifier, I have Reaper Scan, which is going to give us greater access to blacklisted marked enemies and a better chance to proc the 15-second buff with the 10% weapon handling and critical hit chance. For the third passive modifier, I went with reactive reinforcement. This is going to give me a little bit of survivability whenever it procs. For the stats, I'm sitting at 24% critical hit chance, but it'll go up to 34% when I have blacklisted mark buff active. I also have 86% critical hit damage and 165 headshot damage. You are going to want to make sure you have at least 150% headshot damage. That way you can unlock the headhunter's cap of 1250 instead of 800. I'm also getting 97,000 armor and kill to help me stay alive. And once Memento is fully stacked up, we're going to get some armor regeneration as well. For the cores, I am sitting at 6 reds, 1 blue, and 1 yellow. If you're playing on heroic, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier stacking up the headhunter, having all reds. But if you're playing on challenging, you could actually play with a lot more blues. That's pretty much it for the build, so let's head to the shooting range because I know you all love to see those big floaty damage numbers. A tip that I like to give people is that if you go to the shooting range and build up your momentum, you can fast travel to a mission or an open world activity, and the momentum you built up in the shooting range will transfer with you. As you can see, I have no momentum right now, so I'm going to take out my technician drone and start applying burn to enemies with microwave coils, which is quickly going to increase my momentum. Now that we have our momentum, let's build up our headhunters. You can see that the damage got split up. We took out the enemy. Took out the enemy. Now you can see that the damage isn't being split up like before. It's actually just applying fully. We're doing looks like we're doing like 18 million to 2 targets now. As you can see now, the damage isn't being split like it should. We're applying maximum damage to 2 targets. There's definitely no way that I'm actually doing 36 million damage and that's getting split up. Let's pulse the enemies and see how much damage we're going to do to them now. 22 million. 22 million again. Just keep in mind, I don't have my memento stacked up at all. So once you do get kill confirms and get your damage up, you're actually going to end up hitting a lot harder. Now let's take a look at the classic M1 Alpha. Doing about 10 million damage right now. And the damage is going to go up even higher once we stack up our memento with the kill confirm buffs. While we are doing enough damage to take them out in heroic solo, it's going to be really hard to actually stack it up. So I would recommend that you take the classic M1 Alpha only in challenging. If you're going to use turmoils, you're going to have a whole lot easier time. If you do run into an enemy with a helmet or a changa, what you can do is shoot them and they should knock out their helmet, and then you can shoot a different enemy and start stacking up your headhunter again on them. And you can see that the headhunter barely went up anywhere because the damage got split up because we were not able to one-shot them. But you could keep shooting the other enemies as well, and hopefully that the damage from Bewilder would get split up and go to the actual changa or the unit with the helmet. You can see that I was able to take out reds and the named enemy went down. You can see again, just took a bunch of damage. That time Bewilder didn't go. So you could definitely just keep shooting other enemies and hopefully Bewilder will get split up onto the unit with the helmet or the changa or the Black Tusk Warhound or whatever you're trying to avoid shooting so you don't lose your headhunter determined combo. You can see full health. Let's see if we could take out the named enemy by shooting other enemies again. That time you saw that the named enemy took a bunch of damage, and now that their named enemy is low, or if their helmet got blown up thanks to Bewildered, you can actually shoot them now. It's definitely a strat you can use. It's not guaranteed to work every single time. But as long as you take out all the other enemies first, and you'll only have to really worry about dealing with the changa last. And another thing you can do is actually just take out the changa And when you have to rebuild your headhunter stacks, you'll actually have an easier time because the other reds or purples or elites will be lower, hopefully, allowing you to more efficiently build up your headhunter stacks. So you will just have to gauge the situation to determine which strategy is going to be the best. If worst comes to worst, you can prime the targets as well. And what I mean by priming them is by shooting the targets. And while you're doing damage to the primary target, the secondary target is also going to take damage. You can see that the red almost died. So what you can do is shoot another one. And you can see that now 2 reds are really low. Purple is pretty low. And these guys have some damage on them. So now what you can do is go ahead and start getting your headshots. And you can see that the headhunter is going to start going up now. And just like that, from priming the targets, we were able to get a fully stacked headhunter now, allowing us to more freely shoot the enemies without having to worry about not doing enough damage. Alrighty, Dags, that's all for this build with the new knee pads. Let me know what you guys think about them. I don't know. I'm on the fence right now if I like them or not. They are definitely great when you could do maximum damage to 2 targets, but holy crap, it's definitely going to be a little rough when you have to stack up your headhunter in the middle of a firefight. I am definitely excited to see all the cool builds people are coming out to use them. So if you do have a cool build with those knee pads, let us know. If you're subscribed to my channel, thank you for subscribing. And if you're not yet subscribed, please take a second to subscribe. That way you can stay up to date to all my upcoming videos. And I want to say thank you to the community for supporting my channel. You guys are awesome. That's all for now, and I'll catch you at the next one.